The first thing I remember wasn't the fall. It was the silence after it. Not the kind of silence that feels peaceful, the kind that feels like something is waiting, like the house itself is holding its breath, like the walls know the truth but aren't sure who will dare to speak it. I remember staring at the ceiling from the bottom of the stairs, wondering if this was how it ends, not with a goodbye, not with dignity, but with a shove no one would admit to. And I remember thinking one terrifying thought. If he hadn't seen it, would anyone have believed me? Welcome to my YouTube channel Whisper Stories, where silence speaks. My name is Jack, and I am 61 years old. At 61, you think you understand pain. You think you've buried enough friends, swallowed enough pride, worked enough overtime, and forgiven enough mistakes to know what betrayal feels like. You don't, because betrayal doesn't feel like a knife. It feels like a push. The day my daughter-in-law pushed me down the stairs, I didn't scream. I remember the smell of lemon polish on the wooden railing. I remember the afternoon light slanting through the hallway window. I remember the sound of my grandson's toy cars clattering against the floor upstairs. And I remember her hands on my back. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a slip. It was deliberate. For a split second, there was pressure between my shoulder blades, then nothing, then gravity. The world turned into wood and noise and pain. My body hit the stairs hard. My elbow cracked against the edge of a step. My hip slammed. My head bounced once before I tumbled to the bottom in a heap of confusion and breathless shock. I lay there staring at the ceiling, unable to move. And then I heard small footsteps. Grandpa. It was my 6-year-old grandson, Oliver. His voice was high and terrified. He appeared at the top of the stairs, clutching his red toy car in one hand. And behind him stood his mother. Calm. Too calm. Dad must have slipped, she said loudly, her tone suddenly sweet. He shouldn't be walking without holding the rail. I tried to speak, but my lungs felt like they had forgotten how to work. Then Oliver said something that would change everything. No, Mommy, he said, his little voice trembling. You pushed him. Silence fell like a second fall. You should understand something about me. I wasn't a perfect father, but I was a devoted one. I raised my son Daniel, alone after his mother passed away when he was 12. I worked construction by day and stocked shelves at night. I missed dinners. I missed school plays, but I never missed a bill payment. I never missed telling him I loved him. When Daniel married Claire, I tried to welcome her with open arms. She was younger than him by almost 10 years, stylish, confident, sharp with her words. At first I told myself her coolness toward me was just personality. Then I moved into their house. It was supposed to be temporary. After my minor heart surgery last year, Daniel insisted I stay with them while I recovered. You shouldn't be alone, Dad, he said. I believed him. But Claire never wanted me there. It was in the way she sighed when I asked for tea. The way she'd whisper to Daniel in the kitchen when she thought I couldn't hear. The way she'd refer to the house as ours, never family's. Still, I endured it, because Oliver would run into my room every morning, jump on my bed and shout, "Wake up, Grandpa, it's adventure day." And for him, I would stay quiet. After the fall, everything moved quickly. Daniel rushed home from work. An ambulance came. At the hospital, I learned I had a fractured wrist and a badly bruised hip. No skull damage, thankfully. The doctor said I was lucky. Lucky. That word sat heavy in my chest. Daniel stood beside my hospital bed, pale and shaken. Dad, what happened? Claire answered before I could. He slipped. Her eyes locked onto mine. There was a warning there. I opened my mouth. Then I saw Oliver in the corner of the room, hugging his stuffed dinosaur, staring at me with wide, frightened eyes. If I said it, if I accused her, their marriage would explode. My grandson would be caught in the middle. So I swallowed the truth. I lost my footing, I said quietly. Daniel exhaled in relief. Claire squeezed his arm. But Oliver's eyes filled with confusion. That night, after they thought I was asleep, I heard whispers in the hallway. She's lying, Oliver insisted in a fierce whisper. I saw her push Grandpa. Oliver, enough, Claire snapped softly. You imagined it. I did. You want Mommy to go to jail, she hissed. Silence. Then quiet crying. My heart cracked more than my wrist ever could. Children are honest in ways adults fear. The next morning, Oliver climbed carefully onto my hospital bed. Grandpa, he whispered, why did you say you fell? I looked into his small face, so much like Daniel's at that age, and I felt shame burn inside me. Sometimes grown-ups make complicated choices, I said. He frowned, but lying is bad. Yes, I said, it is. Then why did you lie? Because I was afraid. Because I didn't want to ruin my son's life. Because I didn't know if he would believe me. Because at 61 years old, I still didn't know how to protect everyone at once. I squeezed his tiny hand. You did the brave thing, I told him. You told the truth. The tension at home thickened after I returned. Claire avoided me. Daniel acted normal, but I noticed he watched us both more carefully. And Oliver had changed. He no longer laughed as loudly. He no longer raced down the stairs. He hesitated when passing his mother, as if measuring her. One evening, Daniel approached me quietly. Dad, he said, Oliver keeps insisting Claire pushed you. I looked at my son, the boy I once carried on my shoulders, now a man torn between wife and father. What do you believe? I asked. He hesitated too long. I don't know. That hurt more than the fall. A week later, something happened that forced the truth into the light. Claire lost her temper with Oliver. It was over spilled juice. But her reaction was not about juice. It was about control. I heard the shout from the living room. I stood slower now, careful with my hip, and walked toward the kitchen. She had gripped Oliver's arm too tightly. He winced. Let go, I said firmly. She looked at me with cold fury. Stay out of this. Not when you're hurting him. Her face changed. The mask slipped. Maybe if you weren't here, she said quietly, venom dripping from each word, my life would be normal. Daniel walked in just in time to hear that. The room froze. What does that mean? He asked. Claire straightened, nothing. But Oliver pulled away from her and ran to Daniel. She pushed Grandpa, he sobbed. She did, and now she's hurting me. The house felt like it held its breath. Daniel looked at me. Really looked at me. Dad, he whispered. This time I didn't lie. She pushed me, I said. The aftermath was not dramatic shouting. It was worse. It was quiet devastation. Daniel asked Claire to leave the house temporarily. There were tears, accusations, blame thrown in every direction. But one thing became clear, this wasn't about one push. It was about resentment. She had never wanted me there. She saw me as a burden, an obstacle, a reminder that Daniel's loyalty wasn't hers alone. Weeks passed. Daniel began therapy, alone at first, then with Oliver. I moved into a small apartment nearby. It broke my heart to leave, but it was necessary. Claire filed for separation. And through it all, one person surprised me most. Oliver. He would visit every weekend. He'd sit beside me on my worn-out couch and say, Grandpa, I'm glad you told the truth. One afternoon, as we watched the rain through my apartment window, he asked, Are you mad at Mommy? I thought carefully. No, I said, I'm sad for her. Why? Because when people let anger grow too big, it pushes out love. He nodded solemnly, as if filing that lesson away. Months later, Daniel came to see me. He looked older. I should have believed you sooner, he said. You were in a hard place, I replied. I keep thinking, what if Oliver hadn't seen it? I shuddered at the thought. Children don't just witness truth. They protect it. Oliver had saved more than my dignity that day. He had saved his own innocence. Now, at 61, I live in a quiet apartment filled with photographs and the sound of small footsteps every weekend. My wrist healed. My hip aches when it rains. But my heart, it healed too, differently than before. I learned something falling down those stairs. I learned that silence can protect peace temporarily, but it can also protect injustice. I learned that children see more than we think, and sometimes they are braver than we are. And most of all, I learned this. Family is not about enduring harm to keep appearances intact. It is about protecting one another, especially the smallest among us. Last Sunday, Oliver looked up at me and said, "Grandpa, when I grow up, I'm going to be strong like you." I smiled. "Be stronger," I told him. "How?" "Tell the truth the first time." He grinned, and in that grin, I saw hope. Moral of the story: silence in the face of wrongdoing may feel like sacrifice, but it often allows harm to grow. Truth may shake a family, but lies slowly break it. Courage doesn't depend on age. Sometimes it lives in the smallest voices. Protect the vulnerable, speak the truth, and never mistake endurance for strength when what's needed is honesty. Because sometimes the smallest witness becomes the strongest protector. And sometimes, at 61 years old, you finally learn what real courage looks like.